Hello, everyone. I'm here this morning with Jeff Stahl of Stahl Cowan. How are you this morning?
Good, thank you.
Good. I appreciate your taking some time to talk with me and share some of your experiences around business development. Before we get into any guts about that, I just wanted to get a little bit of background on you, your career and moving into working with the firm.
Okay. Briefly, I started practicing law in Texas in 1983. Texas market crashed in 85. Moved back to Chicago, which is my home, in 86. Started working with Shefsky and Freilich as an associate there. In 98, I left to start my own firm with one other gentleman. And we had grown that firm to 7 people doing exclusively real estate and real estate litigation. Merged with another firm in 2001 because of the need for other skill sets. Since 2001, we've had our current group, adding bodies and growing the practice. Now we are all lines of business, transactional and litigation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do you see as sort of the biggest changes that have happened in the legal industry, say in the last 15 or 20 years, that really stand out to you?
When I started, it was pretty common for clients to stay with lawyers and lawyers to stay with firms for their careers. There's a lot more change in both of those situations over the last 15, 20 years. It seems now that if you haven't practiced at 2 or 3 firms, you really haven't experienced the practice as you should. And clients, whether it be for fees or for convenience or for value, seem quicker to change counsel as well. So the need to continually form new relationships is important, simply because there's no guarantee that the prior relationships will last as they used to.
Okay. And I think that's a good segue to talking a little bit about business development. And if you wouldn't mind maybe giving a little bit of background, or if there was a specific time where you realized, for you that business development, was an important element of your career and growing yourself as a business owner and doing what you're doing.
Okay. I think most lawyers, certainly myself included, were aware of it forever, but it was certainly driven home very impactfully when I went off on my own. When I left the firm that I started in Chicago with, I really only had about $200,000 worth of business that I knew I could count on, and with 4 kids and a mortgage
okay,
and a staff to pay for and rent to pay for.
Yeah.
It was pretty clear that wasn't going to cut it. Yet I guess the need to get off on my own was more important than the safety net, because I saw the safety net as having limiting factors. So it was maybe a combination of need and fear that were pretty good motivators.
And then did you have a particular strategy or thought process about how you were going to go about it, grow that 200,000 to 3 to 4 to 5? Was there something
a specific strategy? No.
Okay.
Maybe on a Monday morning quarterback basis, but certainly not when I was.
Well, let's go that route. So thinking back, what were some of the things that you did to help to grow that book, to get that security net to be a little wider?
I think probably the most important feature would be wanting to help.
Okay.
I have seen a lot of practitioners and non-lawyers who have business development as a large part of their mantle, that aren't as successful because they attempt to sell rather than to help people get where they need to get to. And I think if you're able to recognize when someone is in need of service and then be there and creative for them to help them, it isn't perceived as a sale, it's perceived as an assistance, and that usually has greater receptivity than someone who's hard selling.
Right. The biggest, change that you sort of saw, I think, 15 years ago, and it's really come into its own these days, has been, the idea that, if you want to have really freedom within your firm, to work on your own clients, to be able to build a life around, being a lawyer, that business development is really critical. Are there things that you typically recommend to, whether it's younger people in your firm or partners in your firm, that say, hey, you need to go out and do X, or you need to go out and do Y, and these are some suggestions that you provide?
Well, you have to put yourself out there. Obviously, if you're not visible, no one will know you. I don't recommend any specific path, but it usually should be putting yourself in a situation where you have others around you with similar interests, so that at least you have some commonality and an ability to talk to people about whatever it is that you're involved with as a stepping stone to getting into what they're doing in their business careers, so that you can maybe find out whether there's a way to help them.
Are there, if you were to have them and have a room full of 10, 30-somethings in front of you, and you had to say, look, one thing, just focus on one thing, and that's going to, be the biggest, thing I can help you with today, what would that one thing be?
I would have to be listening.
Okay.
I think that too many people miss opportunities because they come into a situation with a preset idea that they're going to try and impress somebody by what they know.
Okay.
You can't learn anything new when you're talking. You can only learn something new when you're listening. And to the extent that you can put something in your memory bank because of what somebody said, and then remember it when a situation pops up that might be comfortable or combinable with what they were telling you. I tell people, too many people go out and market when they're slow. You need to market when you're busy, because when you market when you're slow, you often appear desperate, and you need to have, I need to get business now. Well, that comes across and people realize that. So when you are an associate and when you are working 60 hours a week, when you market then, if it doesn't happen, you're still busy when you get back to the office. And so while you want to build your book, at least you know that your life is pretty full, and you don't come across as somebody who, I got to get your next piece of business because I don't have anything else to do. That's why you have to give up the time that you might otherwise have in an otherwise tight day to spend time marketing. The best time to market is when you're currently full.
Which seems counterproductive because you're so busy, but that's that roller coaster ride that people go on where everything's busy and then they don't do anything and then they crash.
And we all know that most business takes a while to generate. So if you're doing it when you're slow, it's hard to be patient and hard to recognize that this is really sowing seeds for a future day, because you need to fill your plate now. So it's not easy, no question. There's many nights where I wish and I regret not being at a kid's ball game. I mean, I really do. But I think in the long run, it was, from the business side of the world, the right thing to do. Now, that means that when you do get a few hours on a Sunday with your kid, you want to make it as quality as you can,
sure,
because you obviously are making some sacrifices.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've been very successful at helping attorneys with is finding that balance, because I'm a big believer in balancing the family and the work and everything, and everybody should, but not everybody does, and there are sacrifices that have to be made. But again, from my experience, figuring something out on your own, where it might take you 5 years to figure something out versus maybe reading a book or going to some seminars at the CBA or hiring a coach or whatever, that you can cut that down to maybe a year or two and have those processes in place or a strong plan to follow that most attorneys just don't have. One of the things that's been happening to me lately is, I have been talking to attorneys that say, hey, I'm going out to these networking events and I'm just not finding the clients that I want to find. And I say, well, would you expect that a $50 million CEO is going to be in a networking event? I mean, maybe if it's some massive charity golf outing, then maybe they'd be there, but otherwise, no. So, you need to look for those strategic partners. You need to look for the CPAs and the bankers and the the other people that have those clients.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that if you spend some time with somebody and you walk away impressed, where you get a little bit of a, wow, this guy really knows what's going on, that's the guy you want to follow. If you're impressed with him, so are others, and their career's likely going to grow. They've got the skill sets to make you walk away and say, I can see this guy's going to be successful. I want to hang with the successful people.
Right.
So again, it's not an exact science, but if you have to take your choices, think about the folks who you've met who either sound interesting or sound like they've maybe got a unique vision or a unique take on things. And if you're impressed, those are the folks I always felt it would be smartest to hang with.
Yeah. And maybe it has to go both ways. Maybe they're looking to be impressed, so you may have to step up to the plate and,
no question,
say some relevant, have some relevant things to say, or you may have to, listen to what they're saying about their business to be able to think about a potential connection for them and put that all into play, just as they're
Right.
courting you, you're courting them.
Well, sure. I mean, successful people or people who are perceived to be successful or on the fast track are probably doing the same thing. They're looking to hang with people that they think are going to better their careers. So, yeah, finding them is half the battle. The other half is how can I differentiate myself from the herd so that they think I'm worth spending time with as well. A lot of clients retain lawyers and use them as consultants because lawyers see from a handful of clients what's going on. So, for example, if somebody owns a manufacturing plant and they want to use you to negotiate a key employment contract, they're coming to you because you've probably negotiated hundreds of employment contracts in other fields. And so they want to know what tricks or what others are doing, and you're kind of their way. Their day is spent in their business. They don't probably spend enough time canvassing the market as to what is the trends. So recognize that as an attorney, if this is your field of expertise and you have done a broad scope of these things, you've got value right there to add to that client. Not disclosing other client secrets, but here's what I'm seeing. Here's the latest thing happening. They're using you as a way to get market knowledge in that specific area. A lot of people don't recognize early in their careers because they haven't been trained to think this way. Just getting them a legal document is part of it, but let them know, hey, we've got other clients for whom we're adding this to their agreements, or we found this one to be particularly effective in certain instances, and that is a value add that's pretty easy to bring to someone's attention, just relying on your few years of experience in that field.
Yeah, you've got to keep up on what's new is a critical element. But I think what you said about listening, is probably the most important thing that a lawyer could learn, whether it's for prospecting or networking or whether it's dealing with clients. Because if they're not listening and they're just thinking about the end game, they're thinking about how do I manipulate or how do I sell or how do I get the result that I'm looking for, instead of how do I learn and how do I listen, how do I better understand what their needs are, what are their hot buttons, what makes them tick.
Right.
And you're going to get so much further with that than trying to push a rope or do something that's not intuitively going to make sense for both parties. Win-win.
I would agree. Until you're confident enough, most lawyers want to tell clients what they know, and you should hire me because I know this and that and the other thing. And they'll pick up on that on their own most of the times if you've got a bright client.
Or if you ask the right questions. Just by asking good questions, right? They're going to assume that you have answers because you've asked certain questions versus here's why I'm so great or here's what I know. Yeah.
And I think also what a client tells you their issue isn't really always their issue. Through effective listening, you may recognize, wow, this guy really is not telling me what his real issues are. He may not even recognize what his real issues are. So when you can ask him, then, well, you're telling me X, Y, and Z, but man, that must mean that you've got a problem over here.
Yeah.
That sometimes is a light bulb going off in the client's head. So, wow, yeah, you're pretty perceptive. You picked up on it, and you know what? You're right. I didn't even realize it. immediately you've clicked with them, and they recognize that you're hearing them, not what they say, but what they really are going through, which they don't always express.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's great. Okay. Well, listen, Jeff, thank you very much for taking some time to speak with me and help the people that listen to this broadcast, try to get some understanding, listening, how to, generate loyalty, how to get out there and ask questions and listen. I mean, these are all, critical elements that people need to start to really work on.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.